Putin News Now. Does Russia's Wagner leader Prigozhin aspire to higher office? Prigozhin, who is clearly enjoying his newfound prominence in Ukraine, has established himself as a prominent figure in Russia, particularly among the country's conservatives. The 62-year-old founder of Russia's Wagner mercenary private army does not look or sound like a charismatic politician hopeful. Ex-con Yevgeny Prigozhin has a scarred face, a closely shaved head, unevenly stained teeth from smoking, and a vocabulary full of profanity. After being convicted of armed robbery and recruiting children into a gang, he spent most of the 1980s behind Soviet bars. Now, however, Prigozhin has emerged from obscurity and into the spotlight of Russian politics after more than 3 decades. According to surveys, he quickly rose to prominence and established himself as a political leader among conservative Russians who admire Joseph Stalin and are determined to see the conflict in Ukraine through to a victorious conclusion. In May, Prigozhin declared that the death penalty for servicemen and officials who fail to support the faltering war effort was justified because Comrade Stalin was absolutely right. A law like that would be reminiscent of Stalin's measures during the war. After losing tens of thousands of mercenaries in eastern Ukraine, Prigozhin says his Wagner group will need to transform into an army with an ideology, and recruit more members. This mysterious figure visited Russia at the end of May and held 4 press conferences. Others have speculated that the Kremlin is using Prigozhin's metamorphosis as part of a contingency plan in the event of a collapse analogous to the «times of trouble» that occurred between the death of Tsar Ivan the Terrible and the rise of the Romanov dynasty 4 centuries ago. Kyiv-based analyst Alexei Kush sees 2 scenarios. He told Al Jazeera that the hard version is the scenario in which all official power institutions, including the army and the police, collapse and Prigozhin is left in charge of a volunteer army. A more palatable version of this would be, as he put it, for him to lead the radical part of the public unhappy about the war's outcome and lead manageable opposition to power, while still operating under Kremlin management. At the same time, he will push liberal opposition to the political margins by amassing the discontent. It's possible that bulldozing best describes Prigozhin's management style. He ordered Wagner mercenaries serving in Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's army to seize a natural gas plant in an area of eastern Syria controlled by the Kurds in February of 2018. His actions ultimately sparked the first armed conflict between Russian and American citizens since the end of the Cold War. He decided that everything would go smoothly. Marat Gabidulin, who commanded a Wagner unit on February 8, 2018, told Al Jazeera, "Americans had a different way of thinking. Hundreds were killed when a coalition led by the United States launched an air and artillery strike against the unit and the Syrian servicemen they supported. We were simply annihilated," Gabidulin, who spent 4 years with Wagner and wrote about it in 2 books, said. "I'm lucky to be alive and only slightly injured." Gabidulin claimed that Prigozhin's totalitarian approach to making decisions was to blame for the disaster because it frequently resulted in fatal errors. He often overestimates his abilities because of his conviction that he is always right, that he is a genius, he said. Ignore and submit to Putin. The bodies of other warlords whose fame in eastern Ukraine was fleeting lie in Prigozhin's potential path from the trenches to the halls of power. Fugitive Kremlin critic and publicist Sergei Bizyukin told Al Jazeera, "I would not rule out a political career for Prigozhin in Russia." Prigozhin, on the other hand, is more likely to meet the same fate as other separatist leaders in southwestern Ukraine who died under mysterious circumstances after falling out with their Kremlin curators, as he put it. Historical logic is harsh and practically doesn't leave Prigozhin a chance to survive, Bizyukin said. Given Prigozhin's enmity among Russia's top brass and his refusal to coerce Wagner mercenaries into signing contracts with the defense ministry, another analyst concurs. Nikolai Mitrokhin of Bremen University in Germany suggests 2 courses of action. One is to shut up and obey Russian President Vladimir Putin's decision to fuse all the rampant Cossack anarchic liberty of Wagner within the framework of the usual state structures, he told Al Jazeera. An alternative is for him to burn to death after a shot from the Shmel flamethrower in the side of his car, something that will later be ascribed to Ukrainian diversion groups, he said. Prigozhin has already broken far too many taboos for his own good. Putin tolerates former distinguished allies, but Prigozhin has been told repeatedly that he hit rock bottom and will have no more political credit, Mitrokhin said. On June 1, Prigozhin was given a peculiar present by a rival warlord who aspired to political power. The Wagner boss paid a visit to the hospital where pro-Kremlin writer Zakhar Prilipin is recovering from an assassination attempt he believes was orchestrated by Kyiv on May 6. Prilipin, who had previously been critical of Putin, joined the Kremlin's bandwagon after Russia annexed Crimea in 2014. He led a group of pro-Moscow separatist fighters in southeast Ukraine, and he admitted to committing war crimes. Prilipin is now the co-chair of Just Russia, a small leftist party with a handful of seats in Russia's lower house of parliament, the State Duma. Sergei Mironov, a geophysicist who became friends with Putin in the 90s, currently serves as the head of Just Russia. It is widely believed that his party is a Kremlin creation meant to steal the support of retired, communist-leaning Russians. Mironov brags about a gift he received in December, a large sledgehammer bearing Prigozhin's signature. A month prior, a Wagner mercenary who had surrendered to Ukrainian forces in exchange for another was executed using a similar instrument. Prilipin embroidered a sledgehammer case for Prigozhin and commended him and the Wagner mercenaries before he left the hospital with it. Prilipin wrote on Telegram, "The fact that they exist at all is hope for another war, another politics, another political language in which there is very little politicking and more honesty, in which one learns to stick up for oneself." In April, Meduza reported that officials with ties to the Kremlin had speculated that Prigozhin might try to take over the St. Petersburg office of Just Russia. Prigozhin opened a hot dog stand in 1990 in St. Petersburg, and it was from there that he made his fortune trading in everything from cockroaches to blood diamonds. He was successful enough to open a restaurant on a riverboat, and it didn't take long for Putin, then a city official, to become a fan. Putin awarded Prigozhin's companies contracts with the military, schools, and hospitals after becoming president and hosting several state leaders on the boat. A 2019 review of court cases involving Prigozhin's businesses found that despite finding worms, hair, and cockroaches in the food and hundreds of people being hospitalized with infections, the cash flow did not dry up. Although the media has dubbed Prigozhin Putin's chef, his most valuable services to the Kremlin have been far less appetizing. The White House claims that his internet research agency stole the identities of real Americans and used them to create fake accounts that spread pro-Kremlin propaganda. Wagner Group was founded by Prigozhin in 2014, and its operations have taken place in a number of countries, including southeastern Ukraine, Syria, Libya, Sudan, the Central African Republic, Mali, and Mozambique. Prigozhin explores for mineral deposits under their feet. His company, Evropolis, agreed to restore Syria's energy infrastructure by mining hydrocarbons there. The All Eyes on Wagner Group in France asserted that Wagner had financial interests in the trade of so-called blood diamonds from Africa. In January, Wagner took control of Soledar, a city that once supplied 90% of Ukraine's salt. Alabaster, ceramic-quality clay, and coal can all be found in close proximity. According to the Levada Center, Russia's last remaining independent pollster, Prigozhin's approval ratings increased from 1 to 4% in early June. After Putin, Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, he became the country's fifth most recognizable figure. However, according to Levada's top brass, Prigozhin's not cut out for a career in politics. Lev Gudkov was quoted as saying, "Prigozhin has little chances of becoming a federal politician." Aversion and wariness are natural responses to such numbers. He is a lawbreaker.